X references, presumably, in AutoCAD 2. You know what the differences are, right? And the advantages and disadvantages of each. So in Revit, groups are Revit's version of blocks. And links are Revit's versions of X references. As a matter of fact, sometimes in AutoCAD they call X references links as well. And the icon is the same for both X references in AutoCAD and links in Revit. It's a paperclip. All right, so here I am in Revit. Now, in AutoCAD, if you create a block, right, you use the block tool, and I believe it asks what, I don't remember the order, but it asks for a name, insertion point, and a group of entities. And that's how you make a block. In Revit, it's pretty much the same idea. There's one thing, though, about inserting blocks in Revit, which is different, and that's there's no scale factor. Everything is done in true scale in Revit, and nothing gets blown up or shrunk down. So blocks and groups are similar, except groups don't have a scale factor. They're just always a scale factor of 1. All right, and you edit them in pretty much the same way. You can either ungroup them, make your edits, and group them again. And you can do the same thing with blocks in AutoCAD, right? You can take a block, you can explode it, you can edit it, you can reblock it under the same name that redefines it. But you can also edit it without unblocking it first by using the in-place X reference or block editing toolbar. Well, that looks intentionally almost identical to the group editing toolbar in Revit, as you'll see. All right, so in the project browser at the very bottom, there's the list of groups. You'll notice that this file here already has 3 model groups. Model groups are 3D, detail groups are 2D. So we have one called a 1-bedroom unit. That's this one here. You hover over it, it'll tell you what it is. So this is the 1-bedroom here, this is the 2-bedroom group, and here's the 3-bedroom group as currently defined. And right now we don't have any 2D groups, we don't have any links. All right, so to make a group in Revit, which is like a block in AutoCAD, it's noun-verb. Okay, for years, AutoCAD was verb-noun. You basically said what you want to do, and then you picked what you wanted to do it to, right? And then with AutoCAD 12, years and years ago, they started introducing noun-verb as well. Well, Revit and a lot of other programs have always been traditionally noun-verb. So that means you pick what you want to edit, and then you tell it what you want to do. So we're going to pick this kitchen here, for example, and made a selection set. And even if you make a selection set of 1, you can use the make group tools. Here, create group. You can type in GP. So that turns it into a group. All you have to do is supply the name. It will also convert this selection set into a group in place as well. So, in AutoCAD, you've got a choice, right? Do you want to replace the selection set with the block, or do you want to leave it as a loose group of entities? In Revit, it just automatically converts it into a group for you in its place. So this was to be called typical kitchen. And as soon as you say OK, it shows the rotation angle and the insertion point, which shows up at the center of the 2-dimensional extents of the group. But if you want to change the insertion point, you just have to drag the grip to wherever you want to put it. So we'll put the insertion point there, for example. Notice now we have typical kitchen showing up as an additional model group in the project browser. To bring in another one, well, I could pick this one, of course, and choose Create Similar. Or I can go here, right-click on it, and choose Create Instance, and bring it in that way. Or I can just drag and drop, like anything else from the project browser. I can click and hold, and I can drag and drop it in as well. All right, so the kitchen that's going to go into this unit needs to be mirrored, needs to be flipped. So if you're flipping something and you don't want to keep the original, pick the mirror command and turn off copy, so you only end up with 1 kitchen, not 2. And then you can pick the line where you want it to flip. This one needs to be rotated. There's no rotate after placement option on the option bar, which would have been a good thing, I think, if they included it, but they didn't. So you have to insert it in the wrong rotation and then select it and So it's just like AutoCAD. You can rotate it by typing in an angle. Right? Positive is clockwise. And, sorry, positive is counterclockwise. And, or you can show it two angles and it'll rotate it by the difference. Now, one thing that's different about Revit groups from AutoCAD blocks, and again, I just mentioned the caveat, I haven't used AutoCAD for a while, so who knows, it may have changed. But you can exclude things out of an individual instance of a group in Revit. So I can use the same block for many things, but there might be one kitchen where it's just a little bit different. I don't necessarily want to make a new block for that extra kitchen. So what I can do is I can exclude things that I don't want included in that instance of the block or the group. So the way you do that is by selecting using the tab key. Right now, this is a group. If I want to select this wall, I just tab until it finds the wall. Then the exclude include toggle appears. So I can toggle to exclude it, or I can select it again and toggle it back to include it. So if I ask for you to exclude something in a test, that doesn't mean to hide it, that doesn't mean to erase it. Right? This is what exclude means. Exclude has its own specific definition. If you're going to exclude a wall and a door, exclude the door and then the wall. If you're going to include a wall and a door, include the wall and then the door. Why? Because you can't have a door without a wall. You can't have a window without a wall. So if you're going to include or exclude things that contain each other, right, exclude the guest first and then the host, and then if you're going to go the other direction, include the host and then the guest, which would be the door. All right, so in this case then, if I want, I would tab. Now, this even works for nested groups. What's a nested group? That's a group inside of a group. Right? So as long as I tab with the tab key, I can continue to drill down to lower nesting levels. So even if I have a group inside of a group inside of a group, I can take an element out of that smallest group and still choose to include it or exclude it. Right? I don't have to use edit group and break down the larger ones first. I can drill down with the tab key to that specific item, even if it's in a group that's nested several levels down. All right, so we'll exclude that door and I'll exclude this wall. So in this particular version of the kitchen, that stuff is not included. If I copy it now the way it is, that will continue to be excluded, because if you copy it, it'll copy it verbatim. But you can still choose those things and re-include them if you want to. All right, now let's talk about nesting a block inside of another block. There's two ways you can do it. Obviously, one way to nest a block inside of another is to make a block and then make another block that includes the first one. Right? Then the first block is nested in the second. So the same thing with groups. So blocks in AutoCAD, groups in Revit, you can make one group, then make a larger group that includes the first one. The first one's now nested in the second. Or you can use the edit group toolbar to add something, add a group to another group, and that's another way of nesting. So since this is a group already, and since this is a group already, we'll add the kitchen group to the two-bedroom unit group by editing the two-bedroom unit group. So I pick the two-bedroom unit group and choose edit group. So now my screen turns a light yellow. I don't think you can see that on the overhead there, but you can definitely see it on your own screen if you do this. And now I can add, I can remove, I can attach, and I can use any of the drawing tools and any of the editing tools to modify my group. But just like in sketch mode, only two ways out. You either accept the changes or you give up. One or the other. Right, so it's like being in sketch mode. So what's in your group currently shows up in black, as you can see. Right, and that's the only thing I can select at the moment.
So that's the two-bedroom group?
That's the two-bedroom unit group, what's in black. So let's say I want to add this. So, you know, obviously I could remove. So if I choose remove, I could pick entities within this group and kick them out, in which case they change to gray. It wouldn't be part of the group anymore. Or I can add to the group. So if I choose add here and now select the kitchen, okay, so.
Why did the door that we removed show up when you clicked it?
What was that, sorry?
Like you excluded the door right
Yeah.
there, and when you added it showed like it was there.
Yeah, let's ghost it in just to let you know that it's still there. It's still there, I can include it if I want to, but,
Okay.
you know, I would have to select it first. All right, so now if I go to the second floor, okay, you can, I'm sorry, that's the ceiling fan. If I go to the second floor, you'll see, now this includes the same kitchen. So this group before, two-bedroom group has been updated globally. All the instances of that group now include this kitchen, with the same included and included entities that were set when it was attached. All right, what else is there here under edit group? Attach allows you to attach a two-dimensional group to a three-dimensional group. All right, so you can't have a group which combines the two, but you can have a model group with an attached two-dimensional group
Oh, so like the
attached to it.
flooring that you have?
Hmm?
So like flooring?
Yeah, we'll get to that in a second. All right, so that's edit group. Now, then there's ungroup, which is like explode in AutoCAD. And link we'll get to it into in a second here. And restore all included, restores all excluded elements to a group. Okay, so why don't we try that one? Okay, so it looks like I gotta drill down to do it. But you got a restore all excluded button there as well. But notice it didn't affect the other instances of the group, so this happens instance by instance. If you want to make a global group edit, of course, let's say I choose edit group, and again, I can use any of the drawing and editing commands to affect this group. So let's say I put in a wall opening. All right, so if I make a change to the kitchen group and adding a wall opening, you'd expect to see that same change on all other iterations of that group. That's just a global edit. All right, so then there are two-dimensional groups. So just make two-dimensional information, select them, and choose create group, and it'll make what's called a detail group. Yeah.
Would that edit work on any of the instances, or does it have to be on the, like, original?
No, any of them is fine. It's like taking a block and redefining it in AutoCAD. It'll update all of the other columns. All right, so we'll add some two-dimensional information here. Remember, most of it's under, or you'll find most of it here under annotate. Find all of it under annotate, but some of it elsewhere. So we'll put in a hatched region. Rectangle here. Of course, you can pick different hatching styles. This is a cross-hatch pattern. So we'll put a pattern in there, and we'll put in some text. Maybe we'll add an arrow here. All right, so I've got two pieces of two-dimensional information there. If I select those 2D things and choose create group, it knows that I'm making a detail group. So I'll call this elevator lobby or whatever. Give that a name. So that's a two-dimensional group, which you can attach to other three-dimensional groups if you want to. Right now, I don't really have a group to attach it to because there's no group for the core. But if I had a group, you know, like made a group called the core or something like that, then I could attach it and make it show up level for level. You can't use copy align to selected levels like you can with 3D stuff, presumably because it's 2D, not 3D, but you can do this. You can select the 2D information, put it on the clipboard, go to another level, and choose paste align to same place. And you can copy it from level to level that way. Not quite as quick if if you have 20 levels to do, but that would be one way to copy it from floor to floor. Then finally, when it comes to 2D, we can create one that's attached to a 3D by, in this case, tagging. We're going to tag the two-bedroom unit. I'm going to tag the doors that belong to the two-bedroom unit. So that means the interior doors. not exterior doors. So it doesn't include the door to the balcony or the door into the suite, because they're not part of the group. And, you know, you might have a group for the exterior shell, might make sense, but in this instance, it has a new group. So you go and choose, in this case, tag by category. I'm gonna turn the leader off, and then just start tagging the interior doors. So there's 8 of them here, I guess. All right, so I put in tags. Now, those tags are smart enough to know that they relate to doors which are part of a 3D group. So if I turn them into a 2D detail group, they'll automatically be attached to that 3D model group called 2-bedroom. So I'll select the tags. I'll just select an area here and filter out what's not a tag. And I'll choose Make Group. So it knows it's now making a attached detail group here. So the model group's name is 2-bedroom, and it's going to attach this detail group to it. And it's going to be called, say, 2-bedroom door tags or something like that.
Sorry, what's the reason behind the conversion from 3D to 2D?
Nothing's converting from 3D to 2D.
Door tags, the same.
The door tags are identifying something that's already part of a 3D group.
Okay.
So if I take 2D information that's tagging a 3D group and turn it into a 2D group, the 2D information, it automatically knows that it has to be attached to the 3D group. All right, so what this means is,
Oh, okay, okay.
so what this means is, now I'm in the first floor. If I go to the second floor now and pick the same group which had that attachment, now I can go turn the same attachment on this level. And so it gets its tags as well, with its each individual number. So we can do the third floor as well. I just select the block now and add the attached detail group. So that obviously can save you a lot of time if you're numbering doors on a big building. All right, so that's 2D detail groups and attached detail groups. Then the last thing that the exercise goes into here is how to do file management with groups and links. We're here under Advanced Features Grouping. All right, so saving and loading groups. So this is basically file management with Revit project files using groups and links. All right, so first of all, in AutoCAD, you want to save a block. You know what the command is, right? W block stands for write. W stands for write. Write block. Write it out to the disk. That's where that comes from. In Revit, if you want to save a group, you have to use the project browser. If there's another way of doing it, I'm not aware of what it is. Maybe it's in there, but it's not on the ribbon. So if I ask you to save a group, you've got to go to the project browser to do it. So let's say I want to save this 2-bedroom unit group here. So right-click on it, choose Save Group, go to Location. It'll have the same name, in other words, 2-bedroom unit, that will be a RVT file, unless I give it a different name. And you'll see it in 3D in a second, and then it'll close again. So that'll let you know it's been saved. All right, so that's all you do. Now that takes a group that you've defined in this project and saved it out as a separate RVT file. To use that RVT file in a different project, I'll start a new project again. All right, so to bring a group in to a new project, you would go to Insert and choose Load as Group. So that's like bringing an AutoCAD DWG file into a host. It comes in as a block. This is taking another Revit project file. It comes in as a group. Pick the one I just saved there. And it'll tell you if there's any duplicate definition names or if it renames anything to avoid duplicate definitions. That's all these little messages are telling you. So that brings it in, but of course it doesn't prompt you to place it. All right, it just brings it into the project file memory. You want to place it, open up groups, find it there, and you can either drag and drop or right click on it, choose create instance. There's a little conflict here, but that's okay. You can see that it's come in. There it is. Now, so that's bringing a Revit file into a host Revit file as a group. Well, what's the difference between a block and an X reference in AutoCAD? Block is saved along with the DWG file that contains it. An X reference is not. In the case of an X reference, the drawing file simply knows to reload this X reference each and every time you open the host file, load it at a given insertion point with a rotation angle and a scale factor. All right, so what that means is every time you open the host drawing file, you get the latest version of the X reference. Plus, the host file is not increased in size by the size of the X reference. It's only increased by the same amount of memory it would take to store one block insertion point, right? So it doesn't really add much to the file size to add an X reference. So those are the advantages. Now, the memory's not such a big issue anymore, right? Because memory's so plentiful and cheap nowadays. Once upon a time, that wasn't the case, right? So saving memory really mattered. Nowadays, not so much. But the big advantage of using X references in AutoCAD is it provided a method by which people could work in teams, right? One person could do their work in a drawing file, someone else could do their work in a drawing file, and you could X reference them all together to a central assembly drawing file that would combine everybody's work into one model. And you do that with X references. Now you can do the same thing in Revit. You know, you don't have to use work sets in Revit to work as a team. You can work with links in Revit and work as a team just like you can in AutoCAD by using X references. So if you're considering working on the same project as a team next year, you might think about using links rather than trying to use work sets. All right? The disadvantage of X references is that with them, the project or the drawing file themselves, they're not whole. They're not as portable. You can't give somebody the file without also giving them the file that's referenced into it. It's not saved along with its host file, like an image isn't saved along with the host file. It has to be reloaded each time, right? So it's not as portable. And for that reason, blocks or groups might be an advantage. Sort of depends on how big it is, who's working on it, how often you expect it to be updated. You know, those are probably the issues you want to think about if you decide to make something a block or an X reference. Anyway, X reference in Revit's called a link. So let's say I want to take this now and convert it to a link. So what you can do is select it. Now what I'll do is I'll go to the desktop first. Okay, because remember, on the desktop, we wrote that file out, right? We saved that file from the condo group file. Save this one, so I'll delete it. It's not there anymore. And then what I'll do is I'll turn this into a link. So modify, select this group. This is convert to link. So when I convert it to link, I actually have two choices here. I can take this, group it, then relink it back in its original location. So this will group it, write the group out as a separate file, bring that separate file back into this one as a link. If I choose the first option, replace with new project file. So it says, save this group as a new project, then it removes the group instance, doesn't remove the definition of the instance, and replaces it with a link to the new project. All right, let's try that. Okay, where are we going to save it? Back on the desktop. Okay, so now notice in the project browser, I now have a link called 2-bedroom unit. How do I change a link into a group. To go in the other direction, you choose bind. So if I bind this, it's going to say, hey, I already have a group here called two-bedroom unit. You know, or I could delete it first, obviously, but if I bind it, it's going to say, do you want me to replace the old one with the new one? Yeah, there it is there, so I'll say yes. Okay, now it's saying, hey, you're not using that link anymore. Do you want to keep it or do you want to remove it? All right, so I'll remove it. All right, so now I've gone the other direction. I've taken my link, converted it back into a group, and removed the link in the process. All right, now let's convert it into a link using the other options. So in this case, I'm going to replace it with an existing project file. So instead of writing this one out as a separate RVT file and bringing it back in a link, as a link, it's going to allow me to go to the browse to the hard drive and pick a different file and link that in instead. So I'll bring in the two-bedroom alternate in this case. Now, it's not much difference except there's an extra door over here, you'll notice. All right, so there it is. So now this is a link called two-bedroom alternate. As you can see, two-bedroom alternate, as you can see. And so, but you know, it's a link here. It's not a group. If I convert this now back into a group, you'd expect to see a model group that appears called C two-bedroom unit alternate. We'll bind that in. Okay, in which case it's saying, oh, well, I still have this link, but you're not using it. Do you want to keep the link or do you want to remove it? So we'll use it, we'll remove it. So links, you know, can be in, there's a manage links dialog box under insert. So links can be loaded but not used. But of course, that just takes up memory for no reason. But links can be loaded and not used. Maybe you want to not use it for a while and bring it back again. You might leave it in here. All right, so that's it. So that explains